Hello YouTube and welcome. Today I will be watching as a creationist attempts to debunk evolution and I will be refuting his arguments. The clip I will be examining is from the DVD series Yes, Your Question, hosted by Christian apologist Ravi Zacharias, and it's shot as a question and answer type forum. This particular question will be answered by John Lennox, who is a philosopher of science, Christian apologist, and a professor of mathematics at the University of Oxford.
My question is, if humans and life were intelligently designed, then why do our bodies not show intelligent design so much as they reveal the evidence of evolutionary ancestry?
A very good question.
So I'm going to try and go to the heart of it. It poses an alternative, intelligent design or evolution. Now, evolution is a mechanism which consists basically of two things: natural selection and mutation.
So far, so good.
If you look around this room, you'll see we don't all look the same.
Yes, that's called individuality. So where are you going with this?
Why is that? Well, there's been a good bit of selecting going on, and there are also mutations from which we all suffer. We're different. So that mechanism does something. That's not controversial. Some of what Darwin observed was brilliantly observed. But now the confusions begin. Richard Dawkins, in his book The Blind Watchmaker, said that evolution is the explanation for the existence and variation of all of life. That is false.
No. I looked through the book and I couldn't find where he said that. It would be more likely that he had said something like, that's the explanation for life as we know it. Because we don't know how life began. We do, however, have several ideas. I found an article published on livescience.com called 7 Theories on the Origin of Life. And when the article says theory, what they really mean is hypothesis. And I will post a link in the description, as well as the link to an article in the Journal of Cosmology written by Dr. Cesar Menor Salvan about abiogenesis.
Because the existence of life is not explained by biological evolution. Now, for the purposes of what I'm going to say, I'm not going to attempt to address the question whether biological evolution has limits. And now's a bit of shameless advertising. That's why I wrote this book. To investigate that from my perspective as a mathematician. Let's assume that evolution does lots of things. But what it doesn't do is explain the existence of the mutating replicator on which it depends. And that mutating replicator is a micro-miniaturized factory of unbelievable sophistication.
You say the life is sophisticated, and that's true. Now, life at the beginning would have been single-celled organisms, incredibly more simplistic than even the single-celled organisms found today. They most likely would have used light as their food source, and they would have slowly evolved from there. Mutations would have occurred because the copying of DNA is imperfect, even more so in organisms that reproduce asexually. The organisms whose mutations made them better at absorbing sunlight would have lived longer and reproduced more, in stark opposition to those whose mutations made them worse at absorbing sunlight. They would have lived a shorter time, reproducing less, allowing the more beneficial mutation to become more prevalent. And after this, he just doubles back and starts saying that we don't know how life started, and basically says that mathematically, it's more likely that we have an intelligent creator. Which, of course, is ridiculous. Is it really more likely that instead of the right chemicals coming together in the right way, after having over 1 million years to do so, that we were created by magic? I don't think so. Now, I'd like to wrap up my video with a clip from renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson discussing some of the possibilities for the origin of life.
Right? Yeah, okay. Good. All right, just a couple of thoughts. One that's sort of deeply cosmic and another one that is fascinatingly disturbing, I think. But you'll be the judge of this. Consider a couple of fundamental facts that has been gleaned in the past 60 years. That the ingredients, if you had asked your chemistry teacher 50 years ago, once you looked at that mysterious chart of boxes that sat in front of your class, the periodic table of elements, where did those elements come from? The chemistry teacher would actually not have an answer for you. They'll say, well, we dig them out of the earth. That's not where they come from. It took modern astrophysics to determine the origin of the chemical elements. We observe stars. We know what goes on in their center. They explode, laying bare their contents. And what we have discovered is that the elements of the periodic table, that which we are made of, derive from the actions of stars that have manufactured the elements, exploded, scattered their enriched guts across the galaxy, contaminating or enriching gas clouds that then form a next generation of stars populated by planets and possibly life. And so, when you look at the ingredients of the universe, the number one ingredient is hydrogen. Next is helium. Next is hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen. Those are the top ingredients in the universe. And you say, well, okay, that's kind of cool. Well, and you look at Earth, because we like thinking of ourselves as special, we say, oh, we're special. Well, what are we made of? Well, what's the number one sort of molecule in the body? It's water. It's water. Well, what's water made of? H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen. In fact, if you rank the elements in the human body, with the exception of helium, which is chemically inert, useless to you for any reason other than just to inhale it and sound like Mickey Mouse, you can't die from helium unless that's all you breathe. Number one in the human body is hydrogen. Matches the universe. Number two is oxygen. Matches the universe. Number three, carbon. Matches the universe. Number four, nitrogen. Matches the universe. And for each of us, the fifth element, other, is the same in both places. Okay? Other. So, we learned in the last 50 years that, of course, not only do we exist in this universe, it is the universe itself that exists within us. And had we been made of some rare isotope of bismuth, you would have arguments, hey, we're something special. But there are people who are upset by that fact, saying, well, that mean we're not special? Well, I think it's special in another kind of way. Because when you look up at the night sky, it's no longer we're here and that's there. It's that we are part of that. And that association, for me, is actually quite enlightening and ennobling and enriching. In fact, it's almost spiritual, looking up at the night sky and finding a sense of belonging, given what we've learned about the night sky. And so now we have ourselves. Now, are we alone in the universe? We're made of the most common ingredients there are. And our chemistry is based on carbon. Carbon is the most chemically active ingredient in the entire periodic table. If you were to find a chemistry on which to base something really complex called life, you would base it on carbon. Carbon is like the fourth most abundant ingredient in the universe. Isn't that rare? You can make more molecules out of carbon than you can all other kinds of molecules combined. So if we ask ourselves, are we alone in the universe? It would be, in spite of my diatribe about UFOs, I tell you in the same breath that it would be inexcusably egocentric to suggest that we are alone in the cosmos. The chemistry is too rich to declare that. The universe, too vast. There are more stars in the universe than grains of sand in all the beaches of the world. There are more stars in the universe than all the sounds and words ever uttered by all humans who have ever lived. to say we're alone in the universe. No, we haven't found life outside of Earth yet. We're looking, haven't looked very far yet. Galaxies this big, we looked about that far. But we're looking. And how about life on Earth? How is it hard to form? Just because we don't know how to do it in the lab doesn't mean nature had problems. So it may be, given that information, that given the right ingredients, which are everywhere, life may be inevitable, an inevitable consequence of complex chemistry. If that's the case, we look around our own solar system, we look at Mars. All the evidence suggests that Mars was once a wet, fertile place, an oasis. There are dried riverbeds and floodplains and river deltas and meandering rivers. It's all bone dry now. Something bad happened on Mars. Some knobs got turned in its environment that left it the way it is right now. Some bad knobs got turned on Venus too. Runaway greenhouse effect. You saw the clip on that. 900 degrees Fahrenheit on Venus. Some knobs got turned there too. People say, why spend money up there when we spend it? Because up there we might learn about down here, okay? I don't want a runaway greenhouse effect here. Venus is the best example in the solar system of a planet gone bad. Let's learn about that first. So, it turns out we learned that asteroid impacts, when they hit, can cast rocks in the surrounding areas into space with escape velocity, so they never come back to the planet from which it was launched. If Mars was wet and fertile before Earth was, as all evidence suggests, and if Mars had life before Earth had life, it is possible for there to have been bacterial stowaways in the nooks and crannies of the rocks that were cast into space. There's some hardy bacteria that we already know exists on Earth. Survives extreme temperatures, pressures, freeze-dried, reconstituted, radiation. The hostile environment of space would be nothing to some of these bacteria. It may be that life on Earth was seeded by bacterial stowaways on rocks that were cast free from Mars. This is a plausible scenario that's called panspermia, the transference of life from one planet to the next. If that's the case, that makes all of us descendants of Martians.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and feel free to send me clips or topics for future videos.